Hi, my dear friends. I'm going to demo how to create a local repository and how to commit changes to local repository. To do that, I am creating a folder, new folder. I want to keep my files inside this particular folder. Generally, when we do a project, we need to have a folder to keep project files. I am creating a folder to keep my files. You can name whatever name you like. Here I'm providing git test. I want to use git to track changes happening in this particular folder. Inside this particular folder, I can create many files and folders. So whatever changes happening inside this particular folder, I want to manage that using git. To do that, we need to create an empty git repository in this folder. To create a repository, we can use git command init. For doing that, we can open git bash, right click in this particular folder and click git bash here. Now we'll get a git bash terminal. Here we can type git init. So currently we are inside D drive git test folder. Inside that I want to create a git repository. So if we execute this particular command, git will create a hidden folder named .git. Now we can see the message initialized empty git repository .git. Git uses this particular hidden folder to manage revisions or changes happening inside this particular folder. Repository is nothing but the storage area where Git keep track the revisions happening inside this particular directory. We can have n number of Git repositories. This Git repository only manages changes inside this particular directory. If you want to manage revision happening inside some other directory, we can have another git repository in that particular directory. So this particular git repository keep track only changes inside this particular folder. Okay, now we have created the repository. Next we are going to see an important command called git status. This command help us to know any changes to be committed to the repository. We can see on branch master. By default, we are working on a branch called master. Since this is a directory we just created, no files, nothing to be committed to the repository. Now I am going to create some files in my git test folder. Right click. I'm creating some text file. Okay. If you are developing some Java or Python or PHP, whatever thing, whatever files, we can create those kind of files. Now I'm just creating some text files for demo purpose. I'm naming it as file 1. Inside this particular file, I'm just typing 111. Okay, some text. Okay, and save it. Now, if you type git status, now we have created a file1.txt. If you provide git status, here we can see any files which we have created or modified. I'm going to create a couple of more files. New file, file 2. Inside that, I'm just putting 222. Save. Creating one more file. Now I have created 3 files. If we go to the git bash terminal, and if we type git status, we can see 3 untracked files. So here we can see the files in red color. Okay, so all these files are not there in the git repository, and I'm going to commit this particular file as a revision to the repository. I can individually commit the file, that means three commit, three separate commit, or I can choose these two particular file and commit that as a revision, or I can choose these three files as a single commit, that is as per our requirement. Okay, consider that we have modified these three files or created these three files. I want to pick these two files and commit that to git repository. We need to select those files to a staging area or indexing area. For that we need to use git add command. Git add, if you provide dot, whatever there in the current directory will be added. So if you want to pick the files, file1.txt, git add file2.txt. Now I have added two files to the staging area. So if you type git status, we can see these two files in green color. So if the files mentioned here in green color, that is in staging area, those files can be committed to the repository. So here we can see changes to be committed. This is untracked file. So when you do a commit operation, whatever we have selected for committing, committed as a revision to the repository. So here we have chosen two files, and if I do commit, these two files will be committed as a single revision. This particular file won't be present in the repository. Only these two file changes will be committed to the repository. I hope you got some idea about what is the need of git status command. Now I am going to commit these files we selected or added to the staging area to the repository as a revision. For that we can use this particular command git commit -m. Why we are committing this particular thing? We need to provide a message. What is the reason why we are creating this particular file? While working on a project, we have to provide a meaningful message. Then only future point of time we can check why I did a particular modification, what is the reason why I did a particular change in a particular file. We might forget many things while developing a project, particularly projects having long durations. Okay, so we need to provide a meaningful message. Here I'm just providing initial commit. Now here the file got committed to the repository. When you commit to the git repository for the first time, you get an error message if you haven't configured username and email. For that we need to use git config. If you type git config --list, you can see I have configured user.name property and user.email property to these values. So here what we need to do is that git config --global user.name, whatever the name you like. Okay. Similarly, user.email, whatever the email you want to have. You can provide your email and your name to config these two properties. Otherwise, Git won't allow you to commit changes to the repository. One of the main purpose of Git is to keep track who has done a particular change. So if you look at git log, here we can see this is the commit number or commit hash, author who has done, the name of the author and email address of the author, and what date and time, and what is the message I have provided. So this information is very key thing. Now if we type git status, now we can see, now the status is not mentioning file 1 and file 2, it is mentioning file 3. There is one more file, that is file 3, that is still not there in the repository. That is why it is showing this in red color. So if you want to commit this particular file to the repository, what we need to do, we need to provide git add file3.txt. So before committing to the repository, we need to put this particular file to the staging area or indexing area of the git. So if you type git status, we can see that particular file in green color, no files in red color. There is nothing present in the working directory. The whatever things in the working directory now move to the staging area. Now if you do the commit, this particular file committed to the repository as a revision. For that I am using git commit. I'm just mentioning it as second commit. Now if you type git log is a command to see the commit history. So we have committed this particular, author has committed files at this particular time, and again another commit happened at this particular time. I'm going to make one more commit by modifying a couple of files. Here I added a in the first file, file 1, and save it, and I'm modifying here with bbb, save it. Now if you type git status, see, we can see these two files in red color, right? If you type git status, if there is any change in your current working files compared to what is there in the git repository, it will mention those particular files. So that means these two file has some change that is not present in the git repository. So if you want to discard those changes, we can use git restore the file name. So whatever state in the repository get restored. Here I'm going to commit these two changes to the git repository. So before committing, what we need to do, we need to add the files, right? So we can provide star.txt. Okay. So here we can see these two files now green in color, and here we can see changes to be committed. These two files are there in the indexing area. Commit process is a two-step process. First, we need to pick what are the files to be committed, and then we need to do the commit. For picking the files to be committed, we can use the add command, then we can use the commit command. I'm putting third commit. So if you type git log, now we can see our third commit as well. Now we have done 3 commits, and if you want to see the difference between these two commits, we can use command git diff, copy the beginning portion of the commit number or commit hash and paste here, and here provide copy and paste here. So what is the difference between these two? Okay, here we can see earlier only 111 was there. Now we have these two lines in this particular file, and here we can see earlier content was file 3. There was no content inside this particular. When we do the first commit, this particular file was even not present. Now in this particular commit we have added these two lines. Using git diff we can see what changes we have done in a particular commit compared to another commit. Now if you open this particular files, as part of our third commit we have modified this particular change. I mean, we have added this particular change and this particular change, right? So I want to revert the change which I have done. That means I want to revert these two changes. Git revert, and what commit you want to revert. So here we have this particular commit. In this particular commit I have modified two files. So I just copy that particular commit hash and paste here. So git revert, what commit I want to revert. So here we can see an editor. This is actually VI editor. So here if you press I, it goes to the insert mode. Then you can type whatever you like. So by default there is some information available. If you want to add additional information, we can provide here. We can generally mention some information related to why we are reverting a particular change. Then we need to escape, press escape key, then shift colon. So we'll get a colon here, then WQ to quit from this VI editor. Now we have done the revert operation of our third commit. So if you look at the files now if you look at our files, now we cannot see the modification which we have done sometime back in our file, right? And here this file also we have done some modification that also we cannot see, okay, because we have reverted that particular commit. That is one of the important functionality of git. Once we commit, and if you think that something is not working, we can revert our fixes. Now we can see git log that revert also. So this is our third commit, and this time we have done the revert commit by this particular author, right? And this is the message we have provided. Then if we revert this particular revert commit, we get this particular fixes or this particular changes back to our working files. Okay, so here I am going to revert this particular revert, so we'll get the original files. Okay, copy git revert, and I'm pasting that particular revert commit. So here if you want to provide some message, we can provide it. Okay, I'm not providing any message. Escape colon WQ. Now we have reverted that particular commit. Now if you open our file, we should be able to see the commit which we have done, the changes which we have done some time back. Now we can see the changes we have done some time back as part of our third commit, right? So here in the git log, we can see we have many commits, right? So this is initial commit, first commit, second commit, third commit, our revert commit, and this commit got reverted by this commit. Okay, so if you want to come out of that, you need to use q to quit. Okay, press q button to quit from there. Okay, I hope you got some idea about how to create a local repository, how to create some files in a folder and commit that to our local repository using git commands. Thanks for watching this.